Week 6 is upon us, and you know that means time to find the must plays. And we're going to do that using the usual process we do on the Splash Play channel. Going to dig in and look at projections in particular from our friends over at Stochastic. Or look at ownership as well. See how chalky guys like Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey are going to be with really, really crazy projections of them this week coming up. We're also going to dig into the ETR side of things, see what the solver thinks of your best cash game lineup. We're going to run some sims on there, run some sims on Stochastic. And by the end of this video, you'll know all the industry's must plays along with some of my splash plays for week 6 here. Let's get into it. Late video this week, of course, was at the Great Wolf Lodge for a child birthday. That said, we're back in tow here Saturday morning. I'm feeling like dog shit, but you know what? The work's got to be done, guys. So let's strap in. Let me also retweet this one on Twitter because God knows we gotta do the same shit we always do here. But of course, leading the way projection-wise, Puka Nacua at number 1. Talked about him. 24 fantasy point projection basically is what you're getting for Puka Nacua. Puka, of course, has been one of the guys that this year has looked the best analytically. Of course, the data that I show you guys, my data sheet, which actually put out for the members of the channel right before the video. So if you want to play along with me, look at some of the data while I'm talking through things here, you certainly can. For Puka, though, the biggest thing that stands out, much like last year, he's commanding targets at a rate that nobody else in football is. 39% target per out run for Puka, 12.4 targets a game. Nice team total this week for the Rams as well, 25.8 implied points. And they're facing a Baltimore defense that, you know, if you've been following the injury stuff, they are banged up. They've also just been playing terribly to start the year, giving up 0.2 EPA per dropback, 0.22 EPA per pass. We're basically talking, Cowboys range, even though the Cowboys, everybody talks about what a dog shit defense they are. Ravens, people slowly starting to catch up here, at least this year. Baltimore are not those guys, giving up over 408 yards per game as well overall. So really, Puka Nacua, hard to argue right now. But the main thing for Puka Nacua is that, obviously if you play Devontae Adams, you play Kyron Williams, you get some leverage on Puka. Same thing we've seen on showdown slates. It's a little bit harder to fade the guy, though, on a main slate, even with that $8,700 price tag that we're going to have on DraftKings here. Everyone feels like shit after the Great Wolves shared bathwater. Yeah, and I tried as hard as I could to not get into the water as much because I knew it was going to increase my odds. Already had a sore throat going from the seasons changing. Yeah, Wolf Lodge hype. If you want to get ripped off, see your kids have a good time. You get mostly ripped off financially. Pay $10 for a soft pretzel, and you also want to get germs in your life. Great Wolf Lodge, a great place to be. But fucking kids love it. What the fuck what am I going to do? Christian McCaffrey, your number 2 guy here, facing Tampa Bay. Tough matchup on paper because the run game not going to be there for him. The big thing, though, for Christian McCaffrey, relative to a full point PPR player, he's crushing it overall. The amount of touches that McCaffrey gets every week is also dwarfing basically every other player in football. So kind of like Puka, where Puka's underlying rates and massive target per out run rate, Christian McCaffrey just a crazy intended touch rate for himself, getting 28.6 intended touches a game, 10.4 of which are targets. It's a workload better than 99% of receivers in football, let alone, better than 100% of running backs at this point. McCaffrey, even though he hasn't converted it particularly well in the run game, especially Niners on the year, still no rushing touchdowns, 6 red zone opportunities a game, 3.6 of which are inside the 10-yard line. It's a tremendous role. So McCaffrey, another one that feels very hard to fade. Of course, though, I think the lessons from last week still should be pretty pronounced, where we had a chalky Jonathan Taylor last week, chalky Devon Achane, chalky Breece Hall, chalky Rico Dowdle. A lot of guys were consolidated chalk last week. Kind of think it's the same thing here, where Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey should find their way into the vast majority of lineups. That said, if you were to limit yourself to playing only one of them, if you were to really be mindful, and you should be no matter what, being mindful of playing chalk around these 2 guys, that's the best way to approach things. But these 2 guys projection-wise, these 24-point projections, and I should filter by main slate here so we're not seeing guys like Mahomes in. Really a chasm between these top 2 and everybody else. Jonathan Taylor's pretty close, but McCaffrey at 24, Puka Nacua at 24. Just projection-wise, how the math works out. No lineup out there, no optimizer tool, no simulation tool is going to want to fade these guys because the projections are so much higher than everybody else. Jonathan Taylor at number 3, I would argue he's got an even softer matchup than he had last week. For Vegas, as many flaws as they have, and certainly there's a lot of them, particular on offense. They are a pretty good run defense. Meanwhile, on the other side, Arizona not really good at much of anything. I guess rounding into form a little bit better in terms of some of the EPA numbers. And Actually, the run defense, in my mind, it was worse than it actually is. Negative point 0.1 EPA per rush allowed by Arizona's defense is not that bad. But for Jonathan Taylor, the big thing that I expect here is that, frankly, Arizona seems to be a team going the wrong way. Arizona, Jonathan Gannon, if you missed it last week, I think I talked about it earlier in the week on stream. Amari DiMercado had that big fumble at the goal line last week. Jonathan Gannon got in a shouting match with him on the sidelines, pushed him a little, got a $100K fine for that. Kind of seems like this type of situation where, maybe he loses the locker room a little bit with it. And with Arizona being a 7-point dog on the road, with Kyler Murray expected to play, kind of feels like the Vegas total's backing that a little. So it just seems like a situation where the Colts should be able to beat down on the Cardinals. Obviously, we've seen weird shit happen lately. I would say I would qualify the Bills losing to the Patriots, one of those kind of weird things. This past Thursday, obviously, was not in pocket for it, but saw the game 34-17 for the Giants. Like, I along with everybody else who did content for that game on Thursday, got it completely wrong. And talked about, obviously, the game theory of how it would be appealing to play Giants, but relative to its total relative expectations, did not expect the Giants to beat them by 17. And I'm pretty sure if you bet that, in fact, you would have made all the money. You don't have to play DFS anymore if you'd bet the Giants to win by 17 in that game against the Eagles. Only because weird shit has happened this year, and I think more than normal, especially as it relates to these gigantic spreads. But a 7-point spread favoring the Colts, who have been one of the best teams in football, I just think Taylor should be able to put it down. So I really don't have a hard take against Jonathan Taylor, other than the fact that he'll be probably really chalky again because he seems to hit every week. And maybe this week they run through the pass game more. I don't know. But with Arizona looking, I think, a team that's going to be on the way back down, would expect Taylor to kind of safely get his role, even if he doesn't have a ceiling to win a tournament. Hard to imagine him not getting you high teens, if not 20 fantasy points this week. And that fits with that 21.6 projection he has right now. Baker Mayfield, a 21-point projection for him. More consolidated target tree as well, with Emeka Egbuka going to be the really only credible receiver out there. Cade Otton's still out there, but this week you're going to have no Chris Godwin. He's back out. Apparently a different fibula injury than the one he had, but only has him week to week according to the team. So hopefully he'll be back in soon. It's not great. Mike Evans still out. Bucky Irving still out. As a result, it's going to be Baker out there with Egbuka. Sterling Shepard will play a decent amount. Tez Johnson could play a decent amount. But really, it's like Egbuka and Cade Otton. That's the stack. If you want to pair Rashad White with it, you could. Very easy kind of setup there if you want to go Baker Mayfield's way. At his price tag, though, and with Egbuka being the only receiver you actually want, I'm not probably going to go crazy on Baker stacks this week, but he is your top projected QB for the main slate, so that stands out as your number 4 guy. Number 5, Josh Jacobs, 20.9 fantasy points. A game script here where you expect Green Bay to be really dominant. I know the trade for Joe Flacco. People will go back and go, well, Flacco just beat the team. He beat the team in a real dog shit way where the defense carried most of the water there. Now you have for Cincinnati a 15-point total, which is worse than Jake Browning had at any point. Green Bay, another 14.5-point favorite here, should be your obvious elimination, suicide league, whatever you call it these days. Should be your obvious pick for the week there. I just don't buy that Joe Flacco's better than Jake Browning. I mean, the catchable ball rate Joe Flacco has, granted with less talent, but he had a 73.8% catchable ball rate in Cleveland. Jake Browning was about 78%, so Browning like an average QB. Joe Flacco under average. He's not very efficient in terms of EPA per drop back, was dropping back a ton with Cleveland, didn't do very well with it, was terrible under pressure, and Green Bay does get pressure to 25% clip. This all bodes well for Josh Jacobs. So Josh Jacobs not a sexy play, but certainly this week does feel like he should have similar upside to some of the top running backs because of the fact the game script should be there for him in a pretty big way. Somebody hit the like button. I appreciate that. But also asking a question. Somebody hit the like button, but also ask a question that I don't really think is a one that I want. But Tony Pollard plus Titans to play this week? No, I'm not. Spears is going to get more work every week. Tony Pollard was not a play to me when Spears was out. I don't know why he would be now that Spears is in. Do I like the value on Henry? No, I don't. Ravens have a low total. Henry's not getting great work this year. Cooper Rush starting again. If I thought it would have worked out better for Henry last week, it didn't. I'm not there. You have much more obvious plays this week that look a lot better. But I appreciate the contrarian thought for both of you guys up top here. It's not things that I'm thinking about very much on the slate. Your top values right now, according to Stochastic data. And of course, you want to see the updates here. This is updated yesterday morning, so it was updated Friday morning. But if you guys want to get all the updates as they come through, make sure to use that promo code SPLASH at Stochastic. Big way to support the show and the content I do, which is meant to be sort of divested from promoting just one brand. I'd like to show you guys what's going on around the industry with Stochastic, with ETR. The only one in the business that does this. So if you want to see content like this continue on, please use that promo code SPLASH over at Stochastic. It gets you 15% off all their weekly stuff, their monthly packages, the cheap packages, the expensive sim stuff as well. It's all 15% off, and it does support the show with half the money you pay to them. them comes back to me. So please check that out. And value-wise, Trevor Lawrence, your top QB in terms of value, 3.6x fantasy points. And actually, hey, shout out Mike for that. I really appreciate these videos. Help me become a better player. I think this is what the approach should be, whether you're watching videos with me or just doing it on yourself. But I appreciate that, Mike. Glad to hear it, and I hope it goes well for you. NFL DFS is harder than ever, but honestly, because of how the sims have gone, because of how the last few years have gone, and I said it, and I beat the drum as much as I can on stream for you guys, really as much for myself. People are getting too fancy with plays, and the sims have shown us you don't have to get that fancy, and just try to get top projected players in. Try to be mindful of if everybody's going to play these top projected players, if you're thinking the same way as everybody, you make some pivots off of that. But it's nice to hear that, and I hope it does add similar value to you guys when you watch these videos. I know this video too, frankly, I could have got away with a skip in a week here, but the must plays video everybody watches, like it's the most views I get in the channel every week. So showing up for you guys more than for myself, because I vaguely want to die today. Just the illness accumulation, the exhaustion, but we're okay. Trevor Lawrence, I do it for you, Mike. I do it for the Mikes of the world, and for myself to make this much money. Trevor Lawrence, 3.6x value going against Seattle. Seattle's a tough defense. Trevor Lawrence also ran a bunch last week. Really a weird game situation for how Jacksonville worked out in that one. I think Trevor Lawrence's rushing hurt ATN in that spot for sure. Kind of hurt the pass game as well, where it didn't hit the upside because of Lawrence. I would say running really out of desperation more than anything. Like, the last play of the game with the Jags won on, like he literally fell down. I still think Lawrence is good, even though the one game is going to throw people off the scent a little bit. If Lawrence is one of the chalk plays of the week, I'm kind of happy to not be there. Seattle's defense, a little more league average than I think people realize. They think Seattle's like a shutdown defense, and they have shut down the run pretty well, with a negative 0.14 EPA per rush there, but still giving up 0.1 EPA per drop back. That's pretty close to league average. 0.11 EPA per pass. That's also pretty close to league average. They're not like world beaters, but Trevor Lawrence also not a world beater, in particular in the pass game. I'm happy to not get as much Trevor Lawrence as the field's going to get, even though 5,100 after the game he put up on Monday night, like that's a pretty credible game. Today's a good day because we're another closer to death. Mike Daniel inside. It's a day I don't usually do content, so that's always going to be a brain thing. But I hope I get less fired than Mike McDaniel. That's the hope. But frankly, he's hanging on to his job better than I have at some points. I've been places. Bryce Young, 16.7 fantasy points. Bryce Young gets the glow up versus Dallas this week. Looks pretty good. Obviously, a very concentrated target tree again with Ted McMillan there leading the way. Jatavian Sanders, I think, going to be back in this week. Should have checked that before the show. But I know he's in the projection set right now. Let's see. Practice Thursday. And he got a full practice yesterday. Okay, so Jatavian Sanders should be good to go. That maybe muddies things up a little bit because Tommy Tremble's been playing a good amount. The tight end, a little bit harder to trust, I suppose. But the main thing is that Bryce Young and Ted McMillan probably to be unowned as a single stack. Xavier Leggett's still in the mix, though. With Jalen Coker coming in, it probably upsets the target tree a little bit. I probably wouldn't want to go nuts on Jalen Coker first week out of the gate. But if you wanted to here, again, the Cowboys defense is just so bad, even though Justin Fields didn't take big advantage of it last week, was still a spot where he got there. And frankly, I think could have had better production if the Jets offense wasn't so risk averse in the first 3 quarters of every game, where they think the defense is going to keep them in games. And in reality, the defense is one of the worst in football. Keeps happening every week for the Jets. Point, though, is that Dallas' defense still awful. Bryce Young still drops back 38 times a game. That's towards the higher end of the league. I like Bryce Young a good amount here. He's not running as much as he probably should at this point. 1.8 times a game is not going to get you there. 0.6 inside the red zone. He does sometimes sneak a red zone TD, though. So Bryce Young, same thing as Justin Fields last week. Soft matchup. He doesn't run as much, but he does have a more valuable offense. Certainly with Rico Dowdle, you got to think the Cowboys are going to do everything they can to sell out, to stop that. It's going to open up the pass game even more. If Bryce Young's ever going to have a ceiling game, this should be it. And it's going to be the case for every team that plays Dallas really the entire rest of the year. Drake May at number 3, 19.9 fantasy points. So another week here where it's mostly top values that are all QBs. Drake May faces New Orleans, who has not been very good. Drake May himself, I really thought was not that great in that Sunday night game. Obviously didn't turn it over, which is a big win for Drake May. But like for a team that put up, or for a guy that put up almost 300 passing yards in that game, for a team that won that game, kind of a middling fantasy day, put up 12 fantasy points. I am also obviously anti Drake May, though I should start to change my tune a little bit because he's doing a lot of stuff I look for. He's been efficient, 0.2 EPA per dropback, 0.24 EPA per pass, catchable ball rates, 82.4%. That's fine. ADOT's not that great. 6.7 air yards per target is kind of an offense that's keeping Drake May out of the way as much as it is giving him the real upside. He's also throwing it deep only 2 times a game. He's been good throwing it deep, 1.2 EPA on those plays, but they're not really letting him loose. I still think the offense is kind of built to keep Drake May from killing them as much as it is from him to actually have upside for himself. That's something that always kind of makes me not super stoked about playing Drake May, along with the fact, too, that you had the really easy stack last week with Stephon Diggs in that Buffalo game, but that was a revenge game for him, and Diggs himself is I don't think still guaranteed to be out there as much as many other receivers at his price point. I'm not crazy about the May to Dig stack, not crazy about May to Hunter Henry either, because we've seen the downside of that enough times. But certainly if Drake May hits a ceiling, maybe a double stack can get there. And New Orleans can push. Like, New Orleans hangs in games enough that they probably shouldn't hang in. I think for Drake May, he's a better player than I ever give him credit for. That said, I just feel like he's always more popular player than he should be. So it's a weird thing for me where I'm willing to play Drake May now if the situation aligns, but I think people like him a little bit too much for a guy that, I don't know. I think it's a little smoke and mirrors, but I'm biased. I'll admit that. Sam Darnold at number 4 here, 18-point projection for him going against Jacksonville. Jacksonville, very zoned-heavy team, should allow some PPR scamming to go on here. That said, Jacksonville's also been creating a lot of turnovers this year. We saw it happen again Monday night. I talked about that in the game as well, or in the preview for the game, that they've been creating a ton of picks. Feels kind of unsustainable, but then they take one, 100-yard touchdown basically for Devin Lloyd in that game. Jacksonville on the year deflecting 7% of passes, still holding on to a 5% interception rate. League average is about 2.8 to 3% depending on the year. That's going to come down a little bit. But Darnold has been playing well. This matchup, though, I think should play down. I'm a little surprised to see the totals be, pick 'em with both teams projected for about 24 points. I kind of think this one goes under, but I'm not crazy about Sam Darnold. He got there last week with a JSN, AJ Barner double stack. I mean, really huge with both those guys putting up over 20 PPR points. It just feels like people might chase that a little bit more. I'm still not sold that JSN is actually in that Puka tier and he's getting treated like it. That's the issues I have with the Seattle stack, but Darnold certainly competitive game if nothing else. Spencer Rattler, 15.7 fantasy points for him. He's your number 5 value. Not a very exciting play, but New England's secondary is definitely the weakest spot of the defense. Rattler doesn't get there in any spot. I'm kind of done trying the Rattler thing, but another targeted or concentrated target tree for him as well. That's a positive. Just really the upside, not been there for Olave, not really been there for Juwan Johnson in a while, and you're now splitting reps between him, Foster Moreau coming back in, Taysom Hill coming back in. It's all a little bit mucky for New Orleans, so I'm probably not in the Rattler business, but he's your top 5 projected guy in the week. Let's go to ownership next. And I'm sorry if I spent a little more time on that, trying to figure out what the right speed is for the stuff. It was weird. So Thursday night, shout out to all you guys that liked that video. That was like the most liked video I did in a while. So you guys came through. And I also did basically get a ton of likes in the video, but then YouTube didn't show it to as many people. So the shorter video, it seems like you guys like it more, but YouTube doesn't like it as much. I don't know what the fuck to do, but I'm going to keep testing different lengths of videos. This one, though, is probably going to be a full hour today. Is that projection accurate for White? Yes. Yes, the projection is at White. No, it's an inaccurate projection. I'm showing it for the bit. Must be an increase in receiving work. It's that he got the full bell cow work and you're missing 2 top receivers. So shouldn't be anything that crazy to see. Overall ownership here, Puka Nacua expected for 30% ownership, 31% if you want to be accurate to the decimal point. Christian McCaffrey over 30 as well. Basically, right now for Puka Nacua and McCaffrey, they're going to be in the vast majority of lineups you see that come up, well projected and all of that. Obviously, the field will play them less, but these are 2 players relative projection, like we talked about here. You don't have many guys above 20 on the slate. You also don't have many guys with like really concrete roles, like Puka, like McCaffrey, like Jonathan Taylor to a lesser extent. Those 3 are sort of on a tier of their own. You are paying a lot for them, but you're getting what you pay for. So I really have no issue with playing Puka or McCaffrey, especially if people fear the Tampa Bay running matchup. The reality is that McCaffrey's getting so little of his value from actual run plays that I don't think you need to be there in a crazy way. I think for McCaffrey, I would not go under the field on McCaffrey this week. Like, he'll PPR scam it. He's a better PPR scam, I think, than anybody else in football right now. Puka Nacua, at least you could say maybe the pass game flows away from him. Kyron Williams, we've seen, score touchdowns, stuff like that. In the pass game, like that stuff can hurt Puka enough. McCaffrey, I don't think Jennings coming back in upsets the target tree enough. Kendrick Bourne's big game last week. Stochastic has him better projected than Juwan Jennings. I don't really think that's accurate either. Just McCaffrey's role is like too solid as these pieces move around him constantly. I think these two feel unfadable, but you got to keep in mind, if I feel like they're unfadable, if you feel like Puka Nacua and Christian McCaffrey are unfadable, everybody who builds lineups this week is going to think the same way. So they're the best projected plays. They look the best. The Sims are going to give it to them the best. The lineup generators are going to give it to them the most. That said, that alone makes them probably a little bit overvalued for just how you want to be unique in a tournament. Rachaad White at number 3. So again, really aggressive projection at a $6K salary by Stochastic. That said, Rachaad White, as we talked about last week, and this week again, Rachaad White just is playing better than Bucky Irving in the run game in particular this year. He's not as good of a pass game weapon. Bucky's been one of the best receiving backs in football, but Rachaad White being efficient with 0.09 EPA per rush, missing 16% of the tackles going against them as well. That's a really big increase from Rachaad White, a guy that had really not much juice. Last year, the year before that, part of why they brought Bucky Irving in was that Rachaad White wasn't making guys miss. Now he's doing that. He also had a pretty good role last week. The red zone role was there from Niners defense has been better than league average, but Rachaad White, if he's going to get you potentially, I would say likely around 20 intended touches, and Sean Tucker's role was not really there, snap wise. Rachaad White last week, Rachaad White played 49 snaps. Sean Tucker 13. That's a chasm in terms of snap count. Rachaad White's got a good role. Don't think the passing upside is as big as for Bucky, but he is out there for a lot of those high leverage, third and long kind of situations as your pass protector. Rachaad White, I would rather play Rico Dowdle personally, especially relative price. But Rachaad White at 6K, hard to argue. Again, he projects really well, and he should. Javonte Williams, 6,400. That's prop projections and site DFS projections are not the same thing. What stat percentage do I expect for Tez Johnson? Not enough to want to play him. He should be out there more, but like anybody who's not Igbuka, like I said in the beginning, anybody who's not Igbuka, not Cade Otton, I don't know that you really want to get to. And that's the same stuff we're talking about. Like, you think you're getting theoretical leverage against those guys, but in reality, Tez Johnson is like a real long shot to make a winning lineup. Even Sterling Shepard, who's been playing a ton, like Tez Johnson played 22 snaps last week. Sterling Shepard played 25, really not that big of a gap. Was bigger the weeks before that. You just don't really have to play those guys. So I want to answer your question, but in reality, we would all do better worrying less about the Tez Johnson types. Just find somebody else to play. He's an efficient player, though. Was at Oregon. I just don't know the role is going to be that much better. Yeah, and Igbuka just keeps getting there every week. Like, I don't think he'll have the same ceiling. Igbuka's one of those guys I really expect to regress in the second half of the season because he's just ran like way too hot. He's getting 60-yard contested catches that are kind of making his numbers look a lot better, stuff like that. And it's not that he's like even going up and to get the ball. Like, he's getting the ball with the ball bouncing off a guy in the secondary. Like, I don't know. Point being is like, I get the idea of wanting to play Tez Johnson. Just don't try not to play the Tez Johnsons quite as much. Don't worry about them. Worry about guys that are actually have roles and are just underplayed for their role. Like, worry about Tet McMillan. Obviously different price points, but like, that's part of the process that I think is really important to keep in mind. Javonte Williams, number 4, highest owned guy expected by Stochastic, 24% for him. Rico Dowdle, 22%. Sort of similar plays in the same game here. Dallas's defense has been worse than Carolina's. I would favor Rico Dowdle. Revenge game for him as well. Dallas did not pay him the money he wanted. Ended up paying the same money to Javonte Williams, maybe a little bit less than what they were offering Rico. Rico now angry about it. He ran violently, which is what Dave Canales has had a hard-on for basically the last 2 years. Part of what he fell in love with Chuba Hubbard for is kind of what we saw Rico do even better that Chuba has at any point last week. Rico, to me, really strong play at 5,800. I personally would have him above Rachaad White. I would have him above Javonte. I imagine I'll put a lot of Rico lineups with McCaffrey, with Jonathan Taylor, that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, and again, I was right about this last week. We argued about it, yelled at somebody on stream, same thing. They're worried about playing Trevor Etienne. You should worry about playing Rico or playing somebody else that price point, like a Michael Carter, even though he was not as good of a play as Rico. Rico, I backed really hard last week. Everything that we saw last week cemented it for me. I think he's a better back than Chuba. I think they're going to feed him aggressively. And I also think unless Dallas like absolutely smokes Carolina in the pass game, there's no running opportunities. I just really don't see how Rico doesn't have a shot to get there. So Rico, to me, priority play compared to Javonte, but both guys going to be owned over 20%. Lower owned guys here. And again, this is why too, like just real fast is kind of to talk about the Tez Johnson point again. Like Tez Johnson, 4% ownership at 3,200 just kind of feels like a waste of ownership to me. Like it's now a guy that if the field's going to play him, and frankly, the field might play him even more. You can get them right. You can get a Ryan Flournoy right. Obviously, he went nuts versus the Jets last week. But ultimately, the payout is not, in my opinion, as worthwhile as like what you lose when those guys just give you 7 or 8 fantasy points. And like, it's usually how it goes. But if you want to make the case for a Tez Johnson, I guess he would be the equivalent to a Ryan Flournoy last week, where nobody in the industry is talking about him because he doesn't project that well. It doesn't really make sense. But at 4% ownership, I think that's more than enough. Like I've had him 5. I don't know. Even if he crushes, I just don't think you should ever play 10 to 20% of a Tez Johnson type. Maybe if like Igbuka were out, but even then, those guys often don't get there, even when you have like literally no receivers left. Obviously, your Kendrick Bourne situations aside. Besides that, Mac Jones, pretty low owned at 4%, Sterling Shepard at 4%, Chase Brown at 4%. Chase Brown actually probably the biggest beneficiary. People think it's going to be Jamar Chase, going to be T. Higgins for Flacco. Flacco was a check down monster. You might remember some of those days that, in particular, beginning of the year with Dylan Sampson, where it's just constant spamming of targets. Chase Brown's your guy that could get spam targets at 5,600. And he's at a price point, too, where he's a direct pivot to Rico Dowdle, a direct pivot as well to Rashad White. Again, not a guy I'm super stoked about, but I think there's a lot of game theory and logic for how the game might flow to go to Chase Brown this week. Alvin Kamara, under 2%. Hard to play in with Kendre Miller's workload rising and also Kamara banged up. AJ Barner, Darnold going to be pretty decently owned, but Barner after his 20-point game, only 2% ownership. A lot of low-owned guys this week. Some of them not the sexiest. You Titans fans out there, Cam Ward at 4,600, 1% owned. Go nuts. But let's go to the solver next, see what ETR has for us. And I'm sorry if I'm like raining on the parade too much. It's just like, I don't know how this keeps happening every week, that like every week it's like people want to play guys that like I don't think you have to play. And I think it's for me too, like a real thing that I've done too much in the past, especially when hand building stuff. And it's like, just follow projections a little bit more, and I think we'll all do better. Even if Tez Johnson hits this week, and now that I've said his name like 5 times in a not positive way, even though I like his talent, I'm sure he will. But like, you just want to play guys that have real projections on them, even though I know we're tired of losing to the Jacoby Myers situation, stuff like that. But like, if you have those situations more often than not that you're playing Jacoby Myers over receiver Y that like doesn't have a projection on him but hits, you'll do better over the course of time. And that's what, the DFS process should be. Play mainly cash games on DK. The pay lines seem to be higher and higher every week. Any thoughts on that? Projections get better as the year goes on. You should be following projections almost to the letter of the law, ownership to the letter of the law. Like, that's how cash games work. But really, your cash game for the most part, especially in large field cash games, it should just be that you're playing the highest owned guys, like at every position. That's what cash does. That's frankly, even the teams in like your eliminator format in best ball for underdog this year, it's the same thing there. It's the guys that every week are like the chalky players, the ones that are advancing at the highest rates. That's what cash games are. Just play chalk. All right. Top lineups right now, according to TR. Speaking of cash game stuff, let's build 25 lineups here. No variance, no stacking rules on. I also have to adjust these projections so that it'll run. We'll knock Puka down fractionally. And we'll knock Jonathan Taylor down fractionally. And let's see what the optimal is. And guys, if you get any value out of this video, please do show some love here. Hit the like button, subscribe. Again, I feel like I'm the only show in the business that will not just pat you on the head and go, yeah, play that, have a great time. Try my best to give you guys actual process, actual thoughts that I have when building lineups myself. Same data I show you guys here, same data I use, same tools I use to build my lineups. So that's what the process is here on Splash Play. And of course, your likes go a long way here fighting YouTube algorithm, especially today where I'm doing the video at a different time than usual, out of necessity. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please join the Discord as well. Join the channel to get access to the Discord. It all goes a long way to support the show. All right, Trevor Lawrence, your cash game QB at Core DTR. Javonte Williams at number 2. Rico Dowdle in this lineup as well. So seemingly we are not getting to the McCaffrey tier in ETR data, even though their projection for McCaffrey... Oh, all right, hold on. They have McCaffrey still ahead of Jonathan Taylor, but a little bit lower than Stochastic did, and they have Puka Nacua a little bit higher. So ETR data favors Puka Nacua more. McCaffrey less by a decent amount, actually. It looks like according to ETR data, McCaffrey is not really a cash game play, He's only in 4% of these top 25 lineups. But this lineup, Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle, Puka Nacua, JSN here. Once again, every data site out there loves JSN every week. He does keep hitting, so more power to him. This matchup, too, I would think, versus a zone-heavy team, should play right into JSN's hands relatively. Chris Olave makes the team again here. His projections have been too good for weeks. Michael Mayer, no Brock Bowers this week again, unfortunately. Mayer coming back in off his concussion. Wish you were a little bit cheaper than 3,100, but it's certainly projection-wise with a 9-point projection from ETR. You get why he comes in here. And Rashad White, another steep projection here from ETR, 19 fantasy points. So compared to Stochastic on him, Stochastic has Rashad White at 19.2, ETR at 18.9. So yes, the projection is accurate relative to whatever projection would be for Rashad White. Dolphins D as well as in this lineup. Overall, across the top 25 lineups, Rico Dowdle's in 100% of them. Chris Olave, according to ETR data, in 100% of them. Rashad White is in 100% as well. So those three right away, at least for ETR players, will get played a lot more than they even realize because the projections work so well. ETR will then cram these guys in a little bit more than they probably should get crammed in. Javonte Williams is in 96% of these top lineups. Puka Nacua is in 92. So I'm a little bit surprised to see Puka Nacua not in every lineup relative to the projection. But that said, it's Rico Dowdle, Chris Olave, Rashad White in all of them, and Javonte Williams, Puka Nacua in the vast majority of them. Overall, in 92% of these lineups, there is Javonte and Rico Dowdle. So right away, I think if you just play max one of Javonte and Rico Dowdle, number one, you're kind of capturing the historical negative correlation for two RBs in the same game. Number two, ETR users at the very least are going to fed a lot of these guys together. And that's not plus EV playing. Like, you can play two running backs in the same game. But if the expectation is that, like, the data wants you to play those guys more, I think it's easier to move away from that. So that's probably the first thing I would do, is to get different. Is just play max one of Javonte and Rico. Overall team stacks, nothing too crazy to note here. This is a lot, though. The fact that Javonte and Rico are together in 92% of these lineups, that is definitely something you don't see very often. But let's pull in our main slate boosts here and increase the game stacking a little bit more because I still refuse to save it every week. I'll go 17.5 for running backs on the same team as our QB, and then 17.5 for opponents. Let's put variance on. We'll build 250 here. So many good RBs in that range. Glad the projection's so big on White. Easy fade. I don't think he's an easy fade. I think you're taking the wrong part of it. If a player, the players, and I'll say it every week until everybody in the chat just goes, yes, for good chalk becomes chalk because the players project well and they look good relative to salary. Whenever you make a play and you're going, I think that ETR and Stochastic are incorrect on their data for a player where there's a large historical sample size and also a Bucs team that is missing a lot of noteworthy players, you're probably the one that's wrong. I'm not saying it about you, Lee, specifically, but just like for everybody out there, retrain your brain. The projections are going to be right a vast majority more often than you and I are. And that, myself, I'm putting in that too, even though I think I'm so great at this. Really important to recognize that this is what the data is. When you see both sites having a guy at 19 fantasy points, please don't call that guy an easy fade. Like, just for the sake of how this process should go. Like, nothing's an easy fade. If it were an easy fade, the guy wouldn't project well. I hear you, but just I could tell by the way you're talking about it. It's like a little, you're cutting close to what bad DFS play is. Bad DFS play is going, I know more than all the data, all the sites together that are, literally every week are winning people so much money. And I've said it on stream, but I talked to Lofty actually off the show, one of the Stochastic streams I've been doing, because he's been interviewing all these Millie Maker guys that come through Stochastic. They use it to promote their data, their tools, all that. And what he's talked about is like, basically, these guys are always all playing chalk. Like, every week they're playing chalk. They might deviate one thing, and a lot of times they're deviating one thing, but they're still mostly playing chalk. And if you're playing 20 lineups, 150 lineups, you still want to play Rashad White a certain amount. You still want to play, even if you think he's bad chalk. If you think Rico's bad chalk, you still want to play him a certain amount. You just want to play him in like unique ways that people aren't doing as much. So like, that's really an important thing to keep in mind, because it's a recurring theme. And I don't know, man. Just like a lot of people out there that I see playing bad DFS lately, and it's somehow getting worse, and it shouldn't get worse. The amount of tools and data we have at our fingertips for fairly affordable prices. All right, let's build into the mini max here. It's going to have the most entries. They were supposed to be doing milli makers and play actions this week on ETR, but it doesn't seem like they are. So we'll just build the mini max, which will give us the most entries and the most 150 set lineups. But if you do use ETR data, they have sims for single entry stuff as well. Your pylon, your whatever, the huddle, the $5 one. So that's other stuff you can do with ETR. And hopefully at some point this year, they'll have Millie Maker fields and play action fields because they haven't had them for the last couple of years. And I think they really should. Are your highest ROI lineups according to ETR? Again, on this field settings here for the Mini Max, which has 24,000 entries that ETR has created for it. Spencer Rattler at number 1, Rico Dowdle, Ashton Genty, Puka Nacua, Chris Olave, Stephon Diggs, Tucker Kraft, Rashad White, Dolphins D. So you can see in this top lineup right away, we are playing Puka Nacua chalk. We are playing what ETR thinks will be chalky with Chris Olave. It's getting more unique by creating a stack here with Spencer Rattler. We also do have the cheaper Rico Dowdle, cheaper Rashad White, and again, not as cheap as they were last week, but it seems like the ETR data, at least for this first lineup, is saying paying down at running back more the move. Number 2, Matthew Stafford, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle. It's a triple stack with Stafford, though, so that's, again, the way to get unique on the Puka Nacua chalk. Stafford with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, Tyler Higbee. You also get Jalen Tolbert sneaking in. I don't really know why, but sure. Josh Jacobs in this lineup, so that's our way to get unique at running back. We are not playing Rashad White. And Dolphins D, there we go. Would ever run the sim on single entry in the show? No, because I'm trying to make decent time, and not as many people play single entry as they do large field tournaments. Number 3, Baker Mayfield, Jonathan Taylor. If paying members want it, fine, but it's just not something I'm going to add to my process because the videos were long enough. Baker Mayfield, Jonathan Taylor, and hopefully no disrespect. Baker Mayfield, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Cooper Kupp, Mika Egbuka, Juwan Jennings in this lineup here. So a Baker double rather, with a bring back of Juwan Jennings. Egbuka, Rashad White, David Njoku is the tight end. Titans D makes it here. Yeah, I mean, look, Geno can be turnover prone for sure. I can live with that. Number 4, you only play single entry. There you go. Well, I'm sure, look, some of you guys do, but frankly, I barely play any single entry. And as I've always said, this channel is just me showing you my gambling. So, yeah, like people want FanDuel. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I can't, I talk about the stuff I care about in the hopes that helps relate the best, because like I think you gamble the best of the things you care about and put the most work into. So that's that. Nolan always knows. Nolan knows the channel too well. Redraft got offered Trevor Etienne for a She Rice. Smash, right? I mean, yes, that would actually be a smash, even though I know you're doing a bit. Triple stack here for Baker Mayfield at number 4. Baker, Mika Egbuka, Tez Johnson, and Rashad White. You're getting Jake Tongas as the bring back here. George Kittle, seemingly a week away. Running backs are Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle. You get Puka Nacua in this lineup as well. Dolphins D in this lineup too. So Baker triple makes it, along with the Baker double being the one before it. And our 5th highest ROI lineup is Sam Darnold at number 1, or at QB. Devon Achane, Ashton Genty. So we're getting real unique at running back here. JSN, Cooper Kupp. Again, playing the chalky JSN, but making it a little bit less chalky by adding Cooper Kupp on top. Brian Thomas makes this one as a bring back. Michael Mayer, your cheap tight end that ETR will like more than I think most people will. Rashad White, Saints D. Overall, across this 150 set of lineups are the highest ROI lineups according to ETR. Your highest ROI player is Tyler Higbee. He has not played very well this year, but I think the logic on that would just be that Puka Nacua projects so well. You add Higbee on top, it gets you lower owned. You fade Puka Nacua, you play Higbee in a super production, maybe goes Higbee and Devontae Adams' way. That's how I assume the sim would build here. Only 1% exposure for Higbee, but because the leverage you get, a very high ROI of 81%. Rashad White, 67% ROI for him, or excuse me, Rashid Shaheed. Rashad White now on the brain. Rashid Shaheed barely being played, but has a high ROI when he does hit. That's basically Rashid Shaheed every week. Geno Smith, 44% exposure, or sorry, I'm reading this wrong. 44% ROI, 0% exposure. My brain function still not there because of the Great Wolf Lodge. Geno Smith, though, not being played a lot, but when he does hit, he'll win you a lot of money is basically the way to read that. Matthew Stafford, 43% ROI. He's in 6% of lineups, being stacked up with Puka. When that plays well, it does work out. And Mark Andrews, only 1% exposure, but a 41% ROI. Really not high ROIs on this slate, at least relative to a mini-max sim. The chalky plays that look good according to ROI, Dolphins D, coming up a good amount, and also a high ROI. Cooper Kupp, perhaps as an addition to JSN or leverage against. He's got a decent ROI on 16% exposure. Puka Nacua, 30% ROI on 30% exposure. That's fine for him. Really not a lot to take away from the ROIs on ETR. Going to Stochastic next. There'll be more to take away here. All right. 10,000 lineups. Here we go. And now we're going to plug while this builds. Guys, hit that like button, subscribe here. Again, do the work as best I can every week, showing you guys how I'm trying to play slates, showing you guys the angles that I believe in the most. So please do hit that like button. Please subscribe if you get any value out of this video. And of course, it helps you fight that YouTube algorithm, which is always an anathema. I can't believe I got as many likes in that Thursday night showdown video and made the video shorter, and YouTube showed it to less people. I don't know what the fuck, to do, but I keep trying here, much like all of us. I'm Sisyphus rolling that boulder upstream, just like you guys building DFS lineups. That's the process here. Stochastic, of course, 15% off, link down below. Solver, no money off, but it does support the show, and of course gets you access to Solver, link down below for that. Check them both out if you can, and let's let these lineups build. Not much love for Mac Jones or Niners, no. I mean, Stochastic has them low owned. I get it. Would think the passing game stack, though, I mean, you probably still want to play McCaffrey with it. If you're playing Mac Jones, a decent amount of production is going to flow McCaffrey's way. But, you know, look, I like Juwan Jennings more than the public does. I think he's a better player than Kendrick Bourne is, even though Kendrick Bourne had a bigger game this year than any point Juwan Jennings with the few games he has played than he's had. But look, you could certainly play Mac Jones. Do I ever show? No, I don't. Mike, you say you watch the shows. No, I don't show the cash lineup for Stochastic. You just do the inferences. The top projected players and top value players. It's going to be very similar stuff. Not a cash game player. I don't care about cash. I'm happy to help you guys with cash games as much as I can. I don't find cash games enjoyable. I play the things that I find fun, which are the large field lotteries. Maybe I'll disclose that in the beginning of the video so people know what I'm about. That's what I'm about. You can try. Everybody tries. There's a guy that followed my basketball videos, Splash Play NBA or Splash Play Bets channel with NBA content coming back soon, by the way, guys. There's a guy that every day would ask me, like, are you going to do FanDuel today? And would do it as a bit. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do FanDuel because I don't play FanDuel. I don't play cash. I don't play FanDuel. If you guys ask me a cash question, or you ask me a FanDuel question, I'll try to answer it. But for the most part, the plays are the plays. Like, the sites will have some minor differences. A couple of slates ago when you had Mac Jones at 1K on the FanDuel showdown slate, those I talked about a little. But for the most part, it's all going to be the same shit. And let's see what we got here. Top lineups according to Stochastic. Number one, Sam Darnold double. Sam Darnold, Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams, double Williams is at RB. JSN, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Trey McBride, Rachaad White, Titans. So really, this is an important one here, and I really try to highlight it because this is what DFS is. This lineup here, Stochastic thinks Puka Nacua is one of the best plays on the slate. That said, the top sim lineup fades Puka Nacua, goes to Kyron, assumes production flows there, whether it's pass game or rushing production. That's the main thing you would say here when you're going to fade Puka Nacua. Playing another piece of the Rams, especially with how high their total is, just makes sense. And you also get the double stack, no bring back for Seattle. Number two, you're getting a New Orleans double. Spencer Rattler, Travis Etienne, Rachaad White, Puka Nacua, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Juwan Johnson, Josh Jacobs, and Buccaneers D. So Rattler double here. You get Olave, get Juwan Johnson. Johnson's roles diminishing a little bit with the tight ends getting healthy around him, or pseudo tight ends like Taysom Hill. Rattler double, I got to say, I thought it would hit at some point this year, a couple weeks ago. I've given up the ghost on Spencer Rattler doubles, but he's not awful. He's really not awful, and the Saints aren't awful. It's just, just hard to pin that upside, and hard for me to see that upside coming this week necessarily. Number three is Sam Darnold is for the top five lineups. Number three is Sam Darnold again. Another Darnold double. Quinshon Judkins makes this one. Obviously, player that has had big upside in every situation possible. Not sure I'd want to go his way personally, but I get why he comes in here. Javonte Williams, JSN, Chris Olave makes it again. Cooper Kupp makes it again. Trey McBride, Josh Jacobs, Dolphins D at number three. Number four, another Darnold double. Surprised to see this many Darnold stacks up top, but keep in mind, Stochastic users are going to be playing Darnold a lot. Sam Darnold, Josh Jacobs, Javonte Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Cooper Kupp, Trey McBride, Rachaad White, Ravens D. And number five, Darnold again, Christian McCaffrey, Javonte, JSN and Cooper Kupp yet again, Jerry Jeudy, Tucker Kraft, Rachaad White, Titans. I wonder if Stochastic's going to update their data because this feels like a preposterous amount of Sam Darnold stacks up top. It is a pick'em game, so I guess that could be part of the logic that you're expecting it to be pretty competitive. And Seattle, not passing over expectation, are they? Seattle is so low under expectation. They're passing 7% less overall than expected, passing 8% less in the red zone. If I had to guess, this Darnold stuff moves. But it might just be that they like JSN so much, you're kind of forcing Darnold in. But I'm really surprised to see that. Player ROIs. Darnold showing up on Stochastic, one of the top values on Solver, but talked about a lot. Comes in very, wait, all right. Yeah, I mean, look, if this data doesn't move at all, he'll be in at least 10% owned if I had to guess. That's a lot. And that's right, the natural JSN ownership will push him more. Yeah, Nolan's a very good DFS player, so even if you don't want to listen to me, listen to Nolan. Banana Pineapple sounds gross, dude. That one, Spags. Am I going to have some naked love? I mean, I have love for the naked, but no, I will not have naked love this week. Stack up your players. Don't play naked players. Even when it's Justin Fields, don't play him naked. It just never works out. Naked QBs cannot, I can't say cannot because anything can win you money, but like in 2025, you're playing naked QBs, you're doing it wrong. If you're doing that across your majority of lineups, I know you're doing it as a bit because you're giving me a laughing emoji, but no naked QBs for me ever. Dolphins D, your top ROI player right now, 2,200 against the Chargers. Chargers going to have an evaporated running game with Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal leading the backfield there. Probably pass rate goes up even more for them, you would think. And, more dropbacks means a shot for the defense. Obviously, Miami's defense has been awful, but you're getting leverage on any Charger stacks by playing the Dolphins D. So, sure, I get them having the top ROI. Sam Darnold, an 8% ROI, despite seeming pretty chalky for Stochastic. He's your number 2 guy. Hunter Long is a weird play this week, so he's 2,500. Thought he might factor in the cash game stuff. Hunter Long's getting targeted 25% of the time he runs a route. So around where Brenton Strange was, he's only been running 6.4 routes per game heading into this week. So he has not played a bunch. Brenton Strange vacates a pretty big role where he was getting targeted meaningfully. He was basically your number 2 targeter on their team, at least right next to Travis Hunter. So Hunter Long has an opportunity here. Again, I don't know that I love him for large field tournaments to play a bunch, but the fact he's coming up here a little bit and the fact he didn't come up at all for the cash game builds on the ETR, I think Hunter Long's kind of an interesting play to have this week. Number 4, Cooper Kupp, a 6% ROI for him. So Cooper Kupp looking like a good play according to Stochastic, and he's really not been at any point this year, but he is 4,600 now, and Cooper Kupp is also still getting 6 targets a game, 26% target per out run rate. Yeah, I guess if you like Darnold as much as Stochastic does, Cooper Kupp coming up a little bit more shouldn't be a surprise. Rashad White at number 5, 5% positive ROI. So once again, highly projected player, going to be chalky. But if the data thinks that he's chalky and still projects well as an ROI play, Rashad White's a good play. Overall stack ROIs here. QB plus 1 stacks. Darnold singles are the only positive ROI play. Everything else slightly negative, including Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, Drake May. Double stacks. Darnold stacks Stochastic loves. 24% ROI for Darnold doubles, but Spencer Rattler still a positive ROI on doubles. Dylan Gabriel, who has been the worst QB in football to start the year, 5% positive ROI for double stacks with him. And Drake May, a 4% ROI for double stacks with him. If I had to guess, mostly got to be Diggs Henry stuff. Triple stacks. Dylan Gabriel is your high. Fuck that, man. Dylan Gabriel triple stack sounds like just donating to the house immediately. But Dylan Gabriel, 21% ROI on triple stacks. Sam Darnold, 12% ROI on triple stacks. Spencer Rattler, a 5.5% ROI on triple stacks. And everybody else is negative, but Baker Mayfield, the least negative. Daniel Jones, the least negative. Overall highest exposed guys. So again, like just to tie back to the previous point, Rashad White, expected to have one of the chalkiest ownerships of the week at 27%. That said, 78% exposure across Stochastic's top 150. So you can always still play chalk. You just put lesser owned stacks around it. That is what DFS is. Rashad White, Stochastic thinks is the best play of the week. And frankly, ETR wasn't that far off either. JSN, 47% exposure, Fields at 19. So a big stand in favor of JSN. Both ETR and Stochastic have force-fed you JSN over the last 5 weeks. And it continues to look like a good play, even if it doesn't hit. His role right now is second basically in the league to Puka Nacua in terms of wide receiver workloads. Number 3 is Javonte Williams, 41% exposure, Fields at 23. So almost a 2x stand in favor of Javonte Williams. So they're going to fade Rico. I hate that. I really think Rico's good. It's hard to do what Rico did last year where they knew what Dallas wanted to do. Dallas really didn't want to pass with Cooper Rush when he took over and he kept getting 100-yard games. I think I'd rather fade Javonte for Rico than fade Rashad White, personally. That's me. Puka Nacua, 37% exposure, and Stochastic's top 150 Fields at 31. So despite Stochastic trying to fade Puka in some of those highest ROI lineups, which makes sense, they're still getting him in a lot of other lineups where probably there's lesser owned pieces around him. Chris Olave, ETR, and Stochastic both loving him, 35% exposure. Fields at 17. New England is a bad secondary. They're bad downfield. I get it. Just Olave and New Orleans really does seem to project better than they actually play every given week. Your most positive leverage guys were Rashad White. Stochastic wants you to get 50% more than the field, so really a strong stand in favor of Rashad White here. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 28% more in the field, your second highest leverage guy. Dolphins D, you're getting 34% exposure. Fields at 8, so that's 26% positive leverage for him in Stochastic's top 150. Cooper Kupp, 20% positive leverage. He's going to barely be played by the field, a 7.5% ownership. They wanted to get 20% more. And Javonte Williams going to be played by 23% of the field, but they still want to get 18% more, and the field's expected to own him. Your most negative leverage plays, Devon Achane, basically a flat fade on him. ETR seemingly liked Achane a little bit more with him in some of the top lineups, but negative 13% leverage for Devon Achane, negative 11% leverage for Emeka Egbuka. His price tag is really high at $7,200. Really strongly believe, even though I don't think you should play Tez Johnson necessarily, I think that Egbuka has really been playing too well, and that's not me being envious of not being in favor of taking as much Egbuka as people did, but it's like, he's running real hot on touchdowns. Granted, Baker does look for him in those kind of high leverage spots, so maybe that comes out in the wash. But Egbuka to me, I mean, he's going to be 18% owned. He feels like a very easy fade for me, even with Godwin and Evans out. It's just he's running too hot for a guy that's not really commanding targets. He's not a PPR scam. Like he's not Puka, he's not JSN in that way. He's just running incredibly hot on touchdowns, and I just don't think it's sustainable. Zay Flowers, but he's been great. If you were in a week before the season, I was not as much. Just thought the price tag was too high. He has lived up to it. I have to be really mindful if I think the second half of the year is going to include a lot less of him having that upside, at the very least on like a week-to-week basis. Zay Flowers, big fade for him, negative 9% exposure. Feels like he's not really a play on the slate anyway, but he's not a play for Stochastic especially. George Pickens, only 8% exposure. Fields at 17. Matchup versus Carolina is not that bad. Pickens got shut down last week. I think going back to Pickens is not a bad move, but if he's going to be 17% owned, Sim does not like it that much. And Jake Ferguson as well, slight fade on him, negative 9% leverage. Stochastic only playing him 4% of their top 150 lineups. Fields at 12.5. So I guess a Dak stack fade is mostly the thing to read into here for Pickens and Jake Ferguson. Let's build a lineup here, though. Of course, we're going to go more in depth on stacks and stuff like that. Tomorrow here, final takes video. We'll be back this week because now I'm back in pocket. And we shouldn't miss any more videos this year, I think, barring a last-minute vacation or something. So come back tomorrow, 9 a.m. You want to see more about each individual QB stacks. I go in more depth then. For right now, though, we're going to close out this video with a hand build. And Dylan Gabriel triple. Cocaine's a hell of a drug. I would guess that it's more just what you can cram in with Dylan Gabriel. And for Cleveland, even though they are a disaster, you don't have Tillman out there. It's Judy, it's Njoku, it's Harold Fannin, really easy stacks to get to. I guess you could play Isaiah Bond, though I'm not an Isaiah Bond believer, was not before his issues, was not, after his issues that didn't get him drafted. But you have a really cheap stacks, and Dylan Gabriel himself is 4,400. He's dropping back enough times. I get why they would go there, but I agree, not a fun click. Pittsburgh's D hasn't been that good, though. I would guess, though, it's more of a Pittsburgh D situation than it is Dylan Gabriel getting going. Whatever. All right, let's build a lineup here. I'm going to try to cram in the players that have high projections because it's just going to make it easier, hopefully, to get the sim right. We know that Puka Nacua projects like the best player in the slate. Let's just get some projection points in with him right away. I'm also going to go McCaffrey here. McCaffrey, again, another 24-point projection guy. This will allow us to hopefully find some other values, maybe even play Tez Johnson in this lineup. And I guess that would be the reason why. If you spend this much salary on the two best players on the slate, certainly you're going to have to save some money somewhere. But I am going to also go with our other chalky RBs, Rashad White, underpriced for what the role is. The Rashol for Rashad White. Let's put him in. And my boy Rico Dowdle, I'm going to put him in for now. If I have to choose between the two, I will favor Rico over Rashad White. For right now, though, Rico getting a bell cow workload last week, a revenge game for him. He has been aggressive about how he wants to have the Cowboys buckle up against him. I think he's going to get the work and hopefully be decent enough with it. All right, so that leaves us 4,200 per spot. And we know the sim loves a Dylan Gabriel stack, so we could always go that way. What's the cheapest QB I could play? Gabriel. Really don't believe in Joe Flacco in the spot. I think he gets a little bit overplayed. Because people are going to think he's going to immediately fix Cincinnati. I don't think that's the case. Let's see what we could do with Bryce Young. Bryce Young at 4,800. We got Rico already stacked up. I'm going to go McMillan here. So we made a chalky Rico Dowdle into a slightly less chalky Rico Dowdle plus Bryce Young plus Tet McMillan. So still correlated. Ugh. I could see why the sim played Jalen Tolbert, or ETR sim played Tolbert. Because he'll be out there. Let's try Flournoy one more week. Because I want to game stack Dallas here. I'm not going to be able to afford Pickens. Not going to be able to afford Jake Ferguson. So I'm going to go Flournoy as a bring back here with McMillan, Rico, and Bryce Young. So again, we've got Chalk, but a lesser owned one. Yeah, there you go. We're on the same page. Went Bryce Young. All right, tight end. Actually, let's get defense in first. So Bengals D versus Green Bay. Probably a no. Ravens versus Rams. That's going to be a no. We're playing Puka. Dolphins, we know, will project well. I do like the Titans versus Geno. Like, just Geno drops back a bunch. Obviously, the pass game has not been getting there much lately. They also apparently want to run more. Pete Carroll was yelling about how, weirdly to the media, about how Chip Kelly needs to run the ball more and run the ball better. So I'm going to go Titans D here. I'm not going to go Browns. I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to go Browns. I don't think Jordan Love is like, Green Bay's not going to risk very much this week if I had to guess. All right, 4,300 left for our last wide receiver. And to be clear, I'll play some Dolphins too. But I think for this build, I feel a little more confident in the Titans. I think the Chargers, like the Dolphins can know the Chargers are going to drop back a lot, and still they might not be able to stop Justin Herbert. I'm not sure. I don't think it works out that way every time, but for the Titans, I don't know. We'll see. The Dolphins ownership scares me a little because I think the Sims for both sides are going to push them a little bit too much. We got 4,300 left for one more receiver. Diami Brown, Rashad Bateman. No, Rashad Bateman's a little too expensive. Josh Downs. We could stack up Carolina even more. It does feel like, though, I don't think Rico can get there if Tet and Bryce Young get there in a double stack. But let's just go with the correlation. Oh, wait, never mind. I need a tight end. I'm an idiot. Sorry. It's, again, brain function not all the way there. So we got 4,200 for tight end. That's a lot to spend for tight end. Darren Waller. Touchdown hounding for sure. So Darren Waller, I don't think that his results are sustainable, but I'm going to try to sim this lineup. I don't think the results are sustainable, but like, you got to keep in mind the guy that he's replacing, Johnny Smith, had some of the best pass game equity in that Dolphins offense last year and the best touchdown equity. And Waller, to his credit, 1.5 deep targets a game. They're all inside the 10-yard line. He's been crazy efficient. And his 25% target rate is basically 1-to-1 with what Johnny Smith was last year. He's too efficient, though. It's going to get worse. But I think we can play Waller here. So 50% positive ROI for this team, which is Bryce Young, Christian McCaffrey, Rashad White, Puka Nacua, Tet McMillan, Ryan Flournoy, who's got a 9-point projection, not a totally crazy play after he did go nuts last week. Darren Waller, Rico Dowdle, Titans D. I don't hate this team. I am going to try to make one little deviation here. Let's go. Let's save some money. Let's go all the way down to Dolphins D, which we know the sim will think is pretty good. Let's play Jake Ferguson again, or instead rather, because he's expensive. No, we can't afford that then. Shit. Thought that would leave me enough money here. It's got to be Flournoy as the bring back on this one. All right. Go down even further on defense. Play Bengals D. That leaves us 3K at wide receiver. I don't. Again, these are the builds, by the way. These are the bad builds. Like, these are the ones that lose money so often. Go to Mayer. I really wanted to get to a Dallas bringback, though. But all right, let's try Mayer. So we'll save some money there. We've now got 5,200 for receiver. Now we can play Olave, which the sim will like. All right, I don't know if they're going to like Bengals D. See why I have a total to play Bengals D if we don't have to. Let's try Ravens D. No, we have Puka. Fuck it. All right, sorry guys. I should have stuck with the first build. So I always get greedy and try to do a second one. It's like, that first one was good enough. All right, so this lineup here, we made a 3v3 swap. Still keeping the Bryce Young stack. Bryce Young, McCaffrey, Rashad White, Puka Nacua, Tet McMillan, Chris Olave, Michael Mayer, Rico Dowdle, Bengals D. So that ROI went up. So the sim likes, again, we got good chalk in with McCaffrey, White, Puka, Olave, Rico Dowdle. We got lesser owned with the Bryce Young stacking and Bengals D. There's going to be a lot of ways to build positive ROI lineups if this is coming up positive. But that's the video, guys. That's an hour here. No premium video today just because I don't have it in me, guys. But you guys got the data sheet already. If you have questions, especially for the members, hop into the Discord, do that. But guys, please do make sure to hit that like button, subscribe. Goes a long way for me here. I'm just one dude showing you my gambling. I apologize if I don't cover everything that you guys are gambling on yourselves. Even prop bets and stuff. Like, I'm just not playing props. I still pay attention to the markets. But I just try to focus on the things that I care about, that I'm gambling the most on in a given week. That's stuff I show you guys here on stream. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe, especially for this video in particular, where I'm doing it at a different time. Be fighting upstream on the YouTube algorithm. Your support goes a long way. Join the channel as well. You get access to the Discord. Great place to be. My data sheet as well. Usually a weekly and premium video, but that'll be back next week, guys. $5 to join the channel. A lot of value you get for that $5. And it does support the show. Gets in the Discord, part of our little burgeoning community on the Discord for the Splash Play. So please do join us on here, trying to build something that is helpful to you guys, while also people I just want to talk to. And that's what we're doing right now at the Discord. Always great to see the conversations in there going, whether I'm in them or not. So join, do that stuff. Click the link in the description if you are a member and you want to get access. Yeah, Stochastic 15% off. Solver, link down below. Check both those out. The data, the tools you saw here on screen. Get it for yourself. And gamble responsibly, guys, even though it is always money time here on this channel. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the channel at Splash Play Pod. Back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Hopefully with a little more throat power. Oh, I shouldn't have said it that way, but hopefully my throat will feel a little bit better. I'll have a little more pep in my step, a little more sleep. We're going to be crushing it. So I'll see you guys then. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Catch you guys in Discord. And live before lock tomorrow, too, on Stochastic at 11:30 a.m. So watch that, too. All right. Bye, guys. Good luck.